But a big reason why you came here was Trev Alberts.
Mhm.
What was it like the day you got the phone call that he was going to be moving on to A&M?
Yeah, Trev had been really cool with me and kind of talking to me about it beforehand. Like, hey, this is out there. This could happen. Um, you know, for me, so when it was, I was in Scotland. I was playing. I took my son on like a little golf trip. My son's a golfer, and he's graduating high school. He stayed behind in Charlotte so that I could take this job. He was like, hey, I took me and him father son trip, and I was coming down 13, and my phone rang, and it was Trev, and I picked it up, and I was like, oh, dang. All right. Well, hey, I'll call you later. I appreciate it. Then I went on ahead. Go ahead and knock that little par in. And a little something.
Just a little something.
A little something. But in my world, of coaching, like people come and go, right? Like people move on. We love them. Like I've had different coordinators. I've had different coaches. Players come, they graduate. Players come, they're free agents, they move on. And I think the biggest thing is always just to make the most of your time when you're with somebody. So, when I got hired, there was a president and there was an AD that hired me that are both gone. But since I've been here, like this is home. Like I love it here. Like my wife opened up a business down in Lincoln. My kids are in school. They're doing well. My son's coming to be a freshman here. Like this is where we want to live. So, thankfully we hired Troy Dannon, who I've known since way back at Temple. I mean, he's a rock star. But it was a little bit of a shock, to be honest with you. But
how do decisions like that affect you?
Well, I think the biggest thing is you want to have an AD. Two things: you want to have an AD who wants you to be the coach. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't want somebody who's like, yeah, he's the coach, but if things get dicey, I'm moving on and hiring my own guy, right? Like you want to feel like, hey, this is my guy. Because the one thing I've learned in this job, you can't do this job well if you don't have like a great partner. And you have to have an AD or a GM or, whatever, who's a great partner with you. And so Trev was a great partner. When I was at Temple, we won a ton of games. Pat Kraft, who's now the AD at Penn State, was like my right-hand guy. Like we battled through everything together. As a Baylor, Mac Rose was like my right-hand guy. So Trev, I picked coming here partially because he was going to be my right-hand guy. When we lost him, obviously it's frustrating, but I've known Troy. And so when Troy came in the mix, I was like, all right, that's someone that I really believe in. When you win at Tulane, like how to get things done to win. And we were sitting up in Havelock at one of the bars in Havelock last year watching Tulane play USC and watching Tulane beat USC in whatever bowl game it was. Like that's mind-blowing. So to have that AD here with us with these resources, I was like, all right, we'll be all right.
Yeah. How much were you involved with that decision with getting him here, with getting Troy here?
They asked me for some feedback. They asked me for some names. I gave them 3 names, and he was one of those names, and obviously, I didn't pick it. Chris Kaborik was interim president, did all the work on it, but I appreciated them saying like, hey, who would you want? And I said, hey, there's probably a lot of guys. Here's a couple guys I know. He had just gotten to Washington, obviously getting to Washington, going to the national championship game, and then leaving to come here. That's hard, and that'd be hard for him. I think it says a lot about Nebraska, though, that someone would be at a place like Washington and want to come here. So they were really good to me through that process, asking me. I'm sure they asked Fred, some others, hey, what do you think? But I knew that Troy was the type of guy that would come here. And my whole thing is always like, just put this place on steroids. Like we got the best of the best.
Yeah.
But like what we do need to do is like we need to like have an urgency. Like we can't be 5-7. We can't be just an average team in the country. This is the University of Nebraska. Like we're supposed to be here, and we're here right now. And so it's not my fault we're here. It's not anybody's fault we're here. We're just here. Right. But we got to get if we're here in 3 or 4 years, then it is my fault. So having Troy involved makes me feel really good about that.
With Troy getting involved too, and the stuff that you got to build with Trev, what areas do you feel like? Because you got these beautiful facilities. What areas would you say could have been lacking to where it's now you guys are growing and getting a lot better in those said areas?
Yeah, I think what Trev allowed me to do was go out and hire a big time strength staff with the right amount of people, hire a big time nutrition staff with the right amount of people. And that's nothing about anybody that was here before. They were great coaches. Right. I'm just saying hiring my people. And, when I first started, we had 1 strength coach and 1 assistant at Temple. And then it was 1 strength coach and 4 assistants. And now we live in a world where you better have sports science people, and you better have interns, and you better have a PT and a director of rehab and a director of return to play. And this is a whole different world now. And so how do you keep players from going into the portal and leaving? they know that they're getting developed. They know they're getting better. I know everyone's going to say NIL. And yeah, that's part of it, obviously. But if you're at a place where you're like, man, I'm getting bigger, I'm getting stronger, my mind's getting better, I'm learning the game of football. If you know you're getting developed, then you're probably going to stick around. And so putting money and infrastructure into that, we have the best, I'm telling you, we have the best nutritionist in the country. She's here, her and her team, they're here. They have 2 full-time chefs just for football who are also dietitians. Like, they know every person's food allergy, every person's want. We have 5 guys doing Ramadan. Like, they're here at 4:30, 4:45 making food for those guys so they can eat before first prayer. They're giving them food at night. Like, they are the best nutrition staff in the country. That's not cheap. That's not easy. We had to go hire them from the SEC and bring them here. So Trev allowed us to do all that stuff. The key to me is putting the right people in this building. And if you have the right people in this building, that will attract and retain really good players.
Yeah. So go ahead.
No, I was just kind of like, hell yeah.
Yeah, no, that's real. Like, you gotta surround your athletes with the right people. That's the only way you can make the program better. And I feel that. I wish I played for Nebraska.
And they get you juiced up, right?
Yeah, they
always,
get you
always
juiced up.
like he knows what to say.
Real talk. So, like, did you bring? So you talked about the NIL deal, going to Temple, not having that, and now having that. How does that change your coaching, your recruit? Like, how is it? Because you old school now to this new school where it's crazy and it's not really policed. So
right. It's I think it's one of the good things for me that I was in the NFL and I dealt with the whole free agent process. Right, like my whole thing in that time was like, hey, when it gets to the end of the season, like, you handle your money. Like, you handle you. Once you agree to your contract or you're with us, then you're with us. And like, that was always my thing. So when a player was like, hey, you know, I'm going to do this for my contract, I understood it, because I was like, you know, I've had probably 7 or 8 different contracts. I've been head coach 4 different times with, you know, renegotiations. I probably had 7 or 8 contracts. Like, when it comes time for that, it's time for that. So coming into the world of NIL, when a player is seeking to get what's theirs, I have no fundamental issue with that. If it starts to bleed over into, well, if I don't get this, I'm not doing that. That's not how you do things in the NFL, other than, you know, if you're holding out, which is different. But I'm saying, like, you know, you have to have your business side and you have to have your other side. And so we're preparing our guys for life, and we're preparing them for the National Football League. And so everything they do, from how they recover to taking notes in meetings to their mindset to now how you handle the business part of it, is something that I want to be the best at. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. What I did see when I was in the NFL, when we drafted some young players, I saw some guys with a lot of talent who, at a couple of schools, I was like, man, they really didn't coach you very hard, did they? Because they were so afraid that maybe that person was going to end up in the portal. And you know what? Like, I'm sorry. If you want to be great, you got to get coached hard. If you want to be great, you need to be coached hard. And what I mean by that is, when it's right, it's right. And when it's wrong, it's wrong. When you do it right, man, we're going to celebrate. When you do it wrong, we're not going to celebrate. When you do it wrong again, we're going to talk about it. And when I'm wrong, and I think that's one of the things I do best as a head coach, when I'm wrong, then I'm going to talk about it too. I'm going to stand up in front of the team like, I messed this up, guys. And so being in a program that doesn't push guys like that, they become 5th-round draft picks instead of 1st-round draft picks. And we're trying to produce 1st-round draft picks. And, you know, when I talk to Deion Dawkins, when I talk to some of those guys that I coached in college, they're still telling funny stories I don't even remember. Like, you remember the time you did this? Remember the time you did that? I probably did do that. Like, you're doing a Coach Pelini when I'm watching you, you know. But they need to be pushed. They need to be developed. And so think about everything I've talked about. You give them the best facilities. You put the best people around them that are helping them and protecting them. But then you have a high standard for them. They got to want those things. And then at the same time, when you have an opportunity, you know, if NIL can help take care of them, then we take care of them. And, you know, that's why I believe that we're always going to be successful. And what we've seen in 2 years is not many guys want to leave. You know, they want to be here. There's a difference between someone who's like, hey, coach, I'm not playing. I'd love to go play at this. We've helped more guys do that. We love those guys. But no one's saying, hey, I want to go leave because, you know, I'm upset about this or that.
Do you feel like Nebraska and everybody around the state understands the importance of NIL? Because I know last year there were a couple clips going around, not of you pushing that not of you pushing saying people don't, but people having the expectation of quarterback play. Hey, a starting quarterback, it costs this, it costs that, or you need the level of support out there to match the level of expectation. Do you feel like that's happening here?
Yeah, I had some coaches. I had some coaches across the country hit me up like, "Hey, man, how you gonna put that out there?" But I was like, "It's the reality, right? Like that's the problem in my mind. That's the problem with NIL is it's not transparent. Like in the NFL, as you guys know, if an agent would have called us and been like, "Hey, you know what? For Will Compton, I know I've already got 3 years, $8 million a year. Can you guys do 8.5?" And then we're like, "Nah, we can't pull the trigger on that." And all of a sudden we see he signs 3 years for $4 million a year. And we know that agent lied to us, then we're never doing business with him again.
Mm-hmm.
So the NFL is so transparent because you see the contracts afterwards. In the NIL world, it's all kind of hidden. So I forget what you just asked me, bro.
The support, he said
the Nebraska,
the support of the level of support
sorry.
matching the expectations.
So my point has always been like, hey, let's keep it all out there. Let's put it all out there and say, like there's teams that that we're gonna face that spend $20 million on their football team, $20 to $25 million on their football team. So a lot of people will tell me like I don't believe in NIL, and I'm like, well, it's not something to believe in or not. It's real. It's here. Like it's what it is. So I'm always like, hey, if you want us to finish first, then let's put first then everything. First coaching staff, first salary pool, first facilities, first NIL. There's a reason why in the NFL they have parity, they have a salary cap. And there is really no salary cap in college right now. So I think we're heading in the right direction. I think it's hard for some people to sometimes understand, like, what are we doing here? To me, investing in young people is never wrong. Like everyone has this thing of like, oh, kids are going to wait. You know what? I'm only where I'm at in my life because people have invested in me and given me opportunities. So if we can help young people on our team have opportunities for name, image, and likeness, then I'm 100% for it. And if we want to win, we better do it at a really high level.